I'd like to think about today's gospel under three key words. The first would be collective. The second would be not legal, but in Christ. And the third would be maximalist. Maximalist, which is not kind of preaching about myself, but we'll cover it when we get there. So first of all, this idea of collective responsibility. I had actually never noticed this before. I'm sure other people have noticed it, I'm probably just very stupid, but I had never noticed that when the beginning of this gospel passage, a famous gospel passage in the 25th chapter of St. Matthew, the beginning of it, we hear that when the Son of Man, on that day when the Son of Man will come in his glory, to judge who? To judge each one of us? It doesn't say that. It's the apostle says to judge the nations, ethni, Gentiles. But also I think the people of Israel, every nation under earth will bless the Lord, as we read elsewhere in Scripture. It's not that I think that excludes individual judgment, because we have many other places in the Bible where we know that, and also even in the same chapter of St. Matthew, that, for example, the woman who loses her coin and finds it and holds a party, she is an individual who has accepted the kingdom of heaven and put the kingdom of heaven first. So it's not that these words or this introduction to this passage excludes our individual responsibility, our personal responsibility to fulfill these commands, to love one another, to see Christ in the hungry, the thirsty, those who are imprisoned, and so forth. But it also means that we have a collective responsibility. Each nation will be judged, not just each person, but each nation will be judged. This means that our fulfillment of the command, your fulfillment and my fulfillment, if I am able to do that, fulfillment of the command, is never done by myself or by yourself. We always have to work, or at least try to work together in order to bring about this vision of the kingdom in which there is no one left hungry or thirsty, no one who's left in captivity, no one who's left alone and sad and mourning. No one is left powerless, but or without respect. This is what we are to do as Christians. We are to be leaven in the lump, leaven in the dough of the nation that we find ourselves in. So there's no excuse to say to the Lord, you know, I did my best to make this vision of the kingdom available, or to bring it to fulfillment, bring it to reality in the world in which I find myself. I didn't have to do that. You just told me to do what I have to do, and forget the rest. That's not an excuse. It won't work. It won't wash with Christ, the judge. He's judging us not only for what we do in ourselves and in our own particular lives, not just what we do in our families, how we raise children or respect our brothers and sisters, how we respond in obedience to our parents, how we honour our grandparents, great-grandparents, the elderly, in our family. It moves beyond that. It moves from the individual to the small community to the greater community. It's the nation that we have a responsibility for, as well as our own salvation. We are not saved alone. That is a great heresy in our modern culture. You know, the idea of a personal Lord God and Saviour Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not saying that's a heresy. We must have a personal relationship with Jesus. But that is not to exclude, that is not to take the place of a community responsibility to God. A community relationship with God. This is where I think monastic life, especially the life of a cenobitic life, that is to say a life lived in community, is to the extent the idea of it, the ideal of it anyway, is a very important thing. Because together, this community, whether it's us or any other monastery, at least we're trying to show forth in the world what it means to bring others into the work of salvation. Yes, we are called upon in the monastic life to work out our salvation in fear and trembling, as is every Christian, as is every human being. But we never do that outside of a community. If we think we do that outside of the community, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble. So that is why it is important for us Christians to show forth in our lives, and therefore to try and bring about in the wider community of our nation goodness, truth, beauty. Sometimes this requires political action. Often it requires political action. Sometimes it requires simply when somebody asks us what we believe, to tell them what we believe. Sometimes it means that we must put ourselves at the service of other people. Sometimes it means to do all three of those things at the same time. But whatever we do, wherever we're called to bring to light the kingdom of heaven which is within us, within each one of us, so that our light may shine, not as a light under a bushel basket, but a light on the hill, drawing all people in our nation to God. So that's the first important thing. We have a collective responsibility, not just a personal, individual responsibility to keep the commandments. But Lord, what is the nature of these commandments? This is bringing me to my second point. Jesus does not say, keep these commandments or else I will punish you. It doesn't say that. The only place where it says the word punishment is when the Lord says, after having considered everything you've done, then you will go forth into the punishment of the flame that never dies. But that's not the first thing. It's not the most important part of this gospel story. And I think when we hear the word punishment, we also should hear the word purification. Because as we know from the tradition of the church, many people will have to go through in the next world a period, a kind of purgation, a kind of cleansing. The Roman Catholic Church calls that purgatory, literally purging. We often think of it in the Byzantine Church. We wouldn't disagree with that, but we would have a different idea of how that purgation might work. Not necessarily a place of punishment, but actually simply a coming to the light, which is at the moment too bright for us. But as we allow ourselves to come into the light of Christ, then that light begins to become, our eyes begin to become accustomed to it. That's more the idea we have, I think, in the Eastern Church. But the Lord does not say, do this, keep these commandments, look for ways in which you can feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and give drink to the thirsty, and all the rest of it. He does not say do that, or else you are breaking the law. He doesn't say that. There is nothing abstract about this passage in the Gospel. We're not doing what we do for the sake of justice. We're not doing what we do or we're called to do for the sake of personal gain, even if that's personal gain in the afterlife. We're not doing it because of X, Y, or Z principles, the principle of maybe even a political principle. We're not doing it for any of those things. We're doing it for Christ, who we find in our neighbour. We do it because it's an act of worship. This passage from the 25th chapter of Matthew is a passage to do with liturgy. Now, I don't just mean the liturgy which we celebrate here in the church, although that's an important, perhaps the most important part of the liturgy of justice, the liturgy of righteousness. But the liturgy, our idea of liturgy is the work of the people. That's literally what the word means. So it's a liturgical, what is primarily the work of the people is prayer, but then that prayer must be made real in the world around us. But not for this. But at no point do we ever step out. As Christians, we never step out of the liturgy, which is prayer and worship, and step into some other world where people do what they do for purely secular principles. That would be communism. That would be an atheistic way of looking at the world. We don't do that. We don't keep these commandments. We don't look for Christ in principles. We look for Christ in persons. We find Christ in one another. We find Christ as a result of and as part of the liturgy of our daily lives. Jesus does not say, if you do these things, you have done them for the sake of some political or abstract gain. You've done them for me. Because I am where? In your name. This is a liturgical command. I cannot stress that more importantly than that. And then the third thing is that this is all in the future tense, I think. Well, I'm not sure exactly what tense you would call it, but the point is it's not in the past tense. It's not as though something was done and it was done once and you can forget about it and move on. Just because you one time, as I did years ago when I was in college, and was confronted by a beggar, a homeless person outside the gates of my college, and I, being young and full of zeal, went up to my room, took out the best white shirt I had, and went down and gave him that. Good for me, right? Good for me. But what have I done since? Well, that's for God to know. Never stop. Just because you've done it once or twice or 100 times in life, there's still more and more to do, because there are so many people who need our help. Whether that's money, whether that's clothing, and whether it's not agitating, but standing up for their rights in the world, or whether it's time with those who need it the most. Need it more than they need time more than we need the time, and so we give it to them. Whatever it is, just because we've done it once or twice or 100 times, doesn't stop at any point. Even into the afterlife, even into the heavenly life, where we are also to be intercessors for the people around us. And we are to join in worshipping the Lord with all the other saints and angels. So this is what I meant when I said the word maximalist. There's never a point in which we can say, all right, I can rest up now, I've done what I have to do. Now God, get off my back. I've done my homework. That's enough. Let me play by myself. No. It never ends, which means the only way to approach the work that we are called to carry out in today's gospel is to carry it out in humility. Deep humility. Because the reality is, we can't do it by ourselves. We can't. And even if we were to spend every minute of our life engaged in works of mercy, corporal or spiritual works of mercy, even if we were to do that, there would still be more to do. And we would only be able to say to the Lord, as the Lord calls us to do in St. Luke's Gospel, I'm only your slave. I've only done just what was demanded of me. We never get to a point where we can say it's enough. Because our God is not a God of the enough. Our God is not a God who can be encompassed by our own minds or our own actions. He's more, always transcendent, always calling us to move forward into eternity. Into eternity. It never ends, this demand of love. And that is not something we should be afraid of. It is something that should delight us. Because the God who is never, can never be held within our own horizon, that is always beyond the horizon, is a God that we can look to with joy and hope and desire. He is a God who draws us to him in love. And as we are drawn into him in love, as we motor toward him, the exhaust, if you like, should be our works of service. That may not be the best metaphor, but it will do for now. We move forward to him, keeping him in mind, because this is part of the liturgy of our everyday life. We do it not just for ourselves, but also in order to convert the nation that we are part of, and the communities we find ourselves to be part of. And we do it into eternity. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, unto the ages of ages. Amen.